Hi, everybody. As we get started, I just wanted to remind you of my friend Lana. She has a great little unique site over at Etsy called The Vintage Chaser. So if you are looking to do some unique holiday shopping or just generally looking for that unique gift, please check out The Vintage Chaser again over at Etsy. The website is etsy.com/shop/The Vintage Chaser. I will also be sure to put a link to this site on my website as well and in the show notes. Give her a try and check her out before you go buying, the mass-produced items that you'd find on some of the other websites. We'll continue on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. This is your host, Greg Payne, coming at you from Studio 12. This podcast is about being the best possible grandpa you can be, focusing on what it is to be a grandpa and how we can all share that experience together for our grandchildren. Hi, today's guest is Dr. Jay Vagno. Dr. D, as I like to refer to him, has been a friend and my chiropractor since 2004 when I moved to the North Atlanta area. Dr. D is going to be sharing with us some of his insights into chiropractic care as well as men's health so that we can stay mobile, that we can move around and deal with all those little aches and pains that come with aging and being a grandfather. You're going to have some excellent advice on when to go see a chiropractor, how chiropractic works, and how it can really help maintain a healthy lifestyle for us grandfathers. Dr. D loves fishing and loves being outdoors and is sharing that passion with his little granddaughters, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the interview. I'm sure you guys are going to get a lot out of this and will understand chiropractic a little bit more if you're not familiar with it, as well as just hearing a good conversation about how we can keep the rust off and how grandpas can stay mobile and flexible in a condition where we can keep up with those little grandkids. So without further ado, we'll jump into the conversation with Dr. D. Hey, Dr. D, thank you for being on this podcast. Really appreciate, what we're going to learn from the care and well-being of our bodies, especially with a focus on how chiropractic care can help maintain us and help keep us going throughout our more mature years, let's say. As we get started, though, I'd love to hear your story of how you reacted and how you were told that you were going to be a grandpa for the first time.
Sure. Well, let me just start and say thank you for inviting me to be part of your podcast. As you know, you and I have known each other for quite a while. Fortunately, I have 4 great kids, 3 daughters and a son. And our oldest daughter, Brittany, had our first grandchild. Her name is Collins. And I remember them breaking news to us. And my wife and I were both really excited. They had been married for a few years and they were both ready to start a family, and just a great time. They were living here locally at the time, so fortunately we were able to kind of be part of her pregnancy. She used to come in for chiropractic treatment during her pregnancy, and we got to be there right after the baby was born. And it seems like all of my children were born at Northside Hospital, I guess the baby factory of Atlanta. And her oldest, Collins, was also born there, and her 2 youngest daughters were born in Birmingham.
Okay. So you were definitely prepared for it. I think I was myself. My oldest son, RJ, had been married for a couple of years, and we knew this was coming, and they didn't pull any big surprises on us, and it sounds like it was a similar situation where, okay, we know this is coming, it's a natural part of life, and we're not shocked. Although there was a little bit with me where I was like, doggone it, I'm too young for this.
I felt that way too.
I think we all do a little bit. There's some things where we can be in denial about the number of candles on a birthday cake, or a few more gray hairs on the side of our heads, but that grandchild showing up is definitely one of those things like, okay, I am a little bit older, and my high school days are a little bit further in the rearview mirror than I really want to admit. But these are all good times for us.
You know, I had a grandfather tell me, he says, Jay, if you knew grandkids were so great, we would have had them first.
Oh, absolutely. And our good buddy Roger Hayes on the podcast had talked about, it's all the frosting without the work.
Right.
Is how he was describing it. So it's grandkids are fantastic, and we've got a great opportunity to mentor them and be a part of their lives. And so
I agree.
now, one of the things that I love to talk about is as we're getting older as men, a lot of us have played different sports growing up. A lot of us are just going through the natural aging process, and it starts to catch up with us at some point. And what I'd love to hear is a little bit from a chiropractic standpoint about how our joints also mature, right? All of a sudden we get a little creaking going, we get a little bit of stiffness getting out of bed, we make some noises getting out of a chair every once in a while. So from a chiropractic standpoint, how does that change over time from our 20s when we can jump off the bed of a pickup truck to, where we're starting to get a little bit of these aches and pains going?
Sure. I guess a good way for me to describe it is, if we look at the various paradigm shifts in our life, in our 20s and 30s, we don't think much about our health. We're very fortunate. We don't have aches or pains. But as soon as we hit 40, all of a sudden these little aches and pains begin to show up. And then as we get into our 50s, all of a sudden our families become important. And then as we get into our 60s, then our faith becomes stronger. So to go back to that question, a lot of us have experienced what I would call little traumas or micro traumas as compared to a catastrophic injury, whether it be a car accident, a slip and fall, or something like that. Motion is life to us. If we don't move, what happens? We see it very commonly in our practice, where we have mature adults that come in and they've had nagging problems, but they just kind of ignored it. And then they wake up one morning and then they can't ignore it any longer. Our joints are designed to last for 100 years or more. But because of these either micro traumas or macro traumas, our joints are put under a lot of stress and strain. We're not really designed to be sitting all day long. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of the working people do today. And when COVID-19 hit, everybody was working from home. Ergonomics were very poor. And it wasn't very long before we started getting phone calls. Hey, I need to come in. My back or my neck or my shoulders are killing me. And so those stresses could cause our joints to age much quicker. I can see an x-ray and see an individual who's taking good care of themselves and their spines look good. And then I can see a 30-year-old that comes in who's been really rough on their bodies, and their bodies look like they're 60 years old already. So it's important that we do take care of our joints, take care of our muscles that support us. And that's what we deal with on a daily basis in our practice.
Sure. And, one of the things too that jumps out is, and not everybody knows, is when does it become, advantageous to start to go see a chiropractor versus, I think a lot of times, we fall prey to, here, take a bunch of Advil, take a bunch of Tylenol, go grab some muscle relaxants. All these aches and pains and everything are totally normal. You just have to live with it. And I think sometimes it may be a little bit of a blurry line for that person who's first going to go visit a chiropractor. What are maybe some telltales or some advice you'd have for somebody that's thinking about doing chiropractor?
Well, we've always said, chiropractic, should start from the cradle to the coffin. And I like to share, stories. We had a young lady who was fortunate enough to treat her through her pregnancy. And when her daughter was about 3 months old, the daughter had not had a bowel movement for about 5 days. And so the mom was getting very panicky. And so she called our office out of panic and says, should I bring, our baby to Dr. Vagno, or should I go to the pediatrician? So my office staff asked me, and I said, no, have her come in and we'll check the baby. And if it's something we can't help, then she can go to the pediatrician. Well, we adjusted her little daughter, 3 months old. And before she left the parking lot, she called up in tears and said that the baby had pooped her pants before leaving the parking lot. So, it's never too early. I started adjusting my children when they were a day old.
Oh,
And,
okay.
obviously adjustments are very different at that age as compared to your age and my age, right?
Sure.
So we tailor the treatment to each individual. But we had a little girl in today who was 3 years old, and she just loves coming in and getting adjusted. And we just know that with the parents starting her child on that, we can see that that child will continue with chiropractic for the rest of their lives. And I hear that many times from patients. My parents took me when I was a little kid, and I've been going to a chiropractor ever since. And when you see those patients, there is a marked difference between those individuals versus other individuals who maybe don't try chiropractic till their late 40s or 50s. And so if you keep things in alignment, there is less wear and tear on the joints, less arthritis, and it just makes life that much more easier to grow old.
It's interesting because I don't think I really started hearing or seeing messages about chiropractic until I was probably in my 20s. Uh, with younger patients coming to you now, do you get a sense that this is now starting to become a little bit more of a way that families are sharing a healthy lifestyle, just as important as diet and exercise, getting the adjustments and, proper posture, things like that? Do you find that the chiropractic is starting to get folded into that healthy lifestyle that's being taught early?
Very much so. Very much so. I think chiropractic is well positioned for the next, 50 to 100 years. Chiropractic was founded in 1895, so we're very young as compared to the allopathic profession. And this generation today is definitely much more health conscious. Uh, they talk about their diets, they talk about their exercise, and they're including chiropractic to be part of that healthy lifestyle.
Well, and I know from my experience too, is that along with chiropractic, I had started in on doing yoga on a more regular basis to help with the stretching. To your point, I'm IT professional. I'm sitting a long time. So it's, to me, I've got yoga and walking and chiropractic as some of the building blocks of being able to be an active grandfather. I want to be able to pick up the 2-year-old and the 3-year-old and the 4-year-old as they get going and wrestle around with them. And I feel just personally that chiropractic, along with some of these other activities and decisions, are helping me along with that lifestyle and being able to maintain that.
Absolutely. And you should be commended for doing those things for yourself. And
Thank you.
as we talked about, motion is life. Did you know that we lose a half pound of muscle mass every year after the age of 20? Think about that. A half a pound of muscle mass every year after age 20 if we don't exercise. And that leads to a lot of stiffness. And when you have stiffness, joints don't move. And that's when they become quote unquote rusty. And that's where a lot of the aches and pains begin to start with individuals. Interesting story. We had a 38-year-old mechanical engineer present himself today as a new patient. And over the weekend, he was picking up his 3-year-old son, kind of picked him up and twisted awkwardly. And, you know, he went to his knees almost, he said. And he'd hoped it would go away. That happened on Saturday. Sunday was no better. Monday was no better. And then Tuesday, he had such a lousy night sleeping. He says, I've got to go try something. And so he called our office, and we were able to accommodate him today.
Oh, that's great. And that also leads me to my next question in terms of the difference and what people, and grandfathers in particular, will get out of a kind of a one-off treating a chronic condition versus that maintenance, the weekly or every other weekly kind of adjustments that we sometimes get.
Yeah, and you know, when patients first come in, it's like them joining a gym. It takes a minimum of 90 days to really get their spines and get them healthy. And once they reach that point, then many of our patients, and 50% of my practice, are maintenance patients. They come in for supportive care. Some come weekly, some come bi-weekly, some come monthly, some come quarterly. And so every patient is a little different depending on what their history entails. And the more they will stay adjusted, they will also be less predisposed to injuries as they do get older. And I think that's a real important thing to consider, is not only does it keep them well, but it also helps to reduce their predisposition to injuries as they get older.
Oh, absolutely. I can remember, and my mom and I were just talking about this, is that, and part of this was I was comparing and contrasting my father and his health at my age. And one of the things that we both vividly remembered was about my age, there were a couple of times where he had twisted and just went down on the floor, and EMTs had to come and get him, and then deal with the muscle relaxants, deal with all those things, where the way that you've helped me maintain my back, my joints, is such night and day versus how my father's health was 30 some odd years ago.
Sure. You know, back in the 60s, when people had back injuries, they would put them in the hospital for a week or two. And as they started studying the efficacy of that, they realized that putting patients in traction and keep them sedentary was not very good from an efficiency standpoint. So they did away with that. And nowadays we find that, you know, keeping patients moving as we're helping to rehabilitate these injuries helps patients recover much quicker.
Sure. Now, with chiropractic, how do you work, and how does chiropractic also fit in with men's health and grandfathers, maybe in particular, when there is an issue where an orthopedist or a neurologist or even the family physician needs to get involved? Because I see that as, you know, the best approach is going to be, you know, doing what you can with minimal kind of trauma to the body, meaning avoiding your surgeries. But then also there's times and places where you have a broken bone, or you've got a broken rib, or you've got something going on. It needs to get treated a different way.
Absolutely. And we're very fortunate to have very good doctors, you know, locally here. And collaboration is everything. I've been fortunate enough to develop a good working relationship with orthopedics, neurologists, family doctors. So when those issues do arise, then we can make the appropriate referrals for those individuals.
Sure. And, you know, I think one of the things that can come up sometimes is that and grandfathers in particular, and people in general, have got to be advocates for themselves, and have to be the ones that really um, get the parties all involved in communicating, because sometimes there's going to be items popping up, whether it's medication or treatments that maybe you don't know about, or there's adjustments or strategies or treatments that you're doing that the other physician doesn't know about. And getting everybody on the same page is really important. So I think granddads especially uh, need to be aware that it's important to get everybody that's part of your healthcare system together and communicating well.
Yeah, co-management is key, and as you said, communication is key. Um, Unfortunately, 80% of our population is on some form of medication. 20 years ago, the average adult over age 50 was on 3 medications. Today, it's 9 medications a day. That's just unbelievable. I'm 62 years old, and I started taking high blood pressure medication about a year ago, and I'm determined this year to get off of that medication. One of the common medications that we see with patients, in addition to either high blood pressure, now diabetes, because that is very much a disease that is running rampant in the U.S., is patients with high cholesterol. And a lot of these patients are given statin drugs, and statin drugs have a real common side effect, and that is joint and muscle pain. So many times when a patient comes in and we find out that they're on statins, we have to assess, is this problem they're coming in with, is it iatrogenic, which means, is it being caused by the medication that they're taking, or is it due to a physical complaint that they may have?
So if it's based upon drug side effect, how is the treatment from a chiropractic standpoint dealt with?
If it's iatrogenic, no. And generally, we will encourage them to go back and meet with their primary care physician and possibly look at a different medication that may not have the side effects that their current medication is having.
Sure, because every medication is slightly different, and so the side effects or the amount of side effects could be, slightly different based on people's own makeups and things like that.
Oh my gosh, when you see a drug commercial, half the commercial is all the side effects that could possibly be associated with the medication.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing about chiropractic. We don't put anything in the body, and we don't take anything out of the body. We try to work with the natural healing powers of the body. And, as we get into our 50s and 60s, as we become these cool grandpas, then it really makes a big difference for them to be able to enjoy that lifestyle so that they can enjoy the time with their grandkids.
Sure. One thing that I have a question on too is that I talked with different grandpas that their kids get after them a little bit because they may be even a little bit older than us, and they're out in the front yard kicking the soccer ball, throwing the football or whatever, and they may go down on the lawn. Based on age, and I know every situation's different, so we're not trying to blanket everybody, but about how long should somebody give some bumps and bruises, aches and pains, time to heal on their own before maybe they reach out for a consultation?
No more than 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah. If a condition continues more than 7 days, they really do need to seek medical care, whether, it's from a chiropractor or whether it's from their primary care. The thing with primary care physicians, they're not really trained to handle musculoskeletal problems, and they'll be the first ones to tell you. And that's why chiropractic really is the treatment of choice for musculoskeletal conditions.
Yeah, because I find too is that, and within that 7 days, a lot of times, I mean, obviously, if you fall and you break something, you're going to know it pretty quickly. But those bumps and bruises and those nagging injuries can take a little while, and you may not always have that bruising that pops up on it. So the 7 days, even if you have a little bit of bruising, that goes away, but it's still the shoulder sore or the hip sore or the lower back sore because of a slip is a great indication to give somebody a call and get checked out.
It is. In my office, I always tell patients the 5 most dangerous words are maybe it will go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the more that I find anyway, the more that you're trying to deal with the pain means the more you're more likely to be reaching out and taking higher doses of Tylenol or Advil. And I'm not trying to knock any particular brands, but a lot of times I think we just think that based on commercials and whatnot, if I just take more of this, it'll ease up. And a lot of times those drugs that help us take too much of that, it starts to have adverse effect on other organs, or
especially the NSAIDs on the kidneys, big time. And they really are rough on those kidneys. And talking about natural health care, we really encourage our mature patients to do certain things nutritionally, such as adding glucosamine, fish oils, which is a natural anti-inflammatory. We're having very good success with turmeric for inflammation. And this year especially, we're getting a lot of questions about the benefits of CBD oil. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these we use in our practice, and patients find those ancillary treatments really complement their chiropractic care.
But I think too with those is that those are going to be ones that you start on and you're going to notice a difference over time. Just like you had talked about, within about 90 days, people really start to feel and notice the benefits of that continual chiropractic care. A lot of those other, supplements, you've got to be on them for a while for the benefits to really kick in, I think.
Yeah, especially glucosamine, because actually glucosamine does have some regenerative properties to it. It can help cartilage be regenerated to a degree. And so it is an excellent supplement for joint support and help with arthritic pains.
It's great to know. It just becomes another little piece of the puzzle as far as a person's overall health and well-being, and how grandpas can be taking care of themselves so that they can enjoy being active with those little rugrats running around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they will wear us out, won't they?
Oh, they would. Absolutely. Absolutely, they will. It's amazing. I talk to people about, one thing with grandparents is that, we can give them back to our kids and tag out when our energy level's starting to go down as well.
Sure.
It's a little bit of, okay, grandpa or grandma's had their fun with the kid, and I'm not going to tell you that I'm tired of running around with the 3-year-old, but here's the little one back. You guys take care of him for a while.
Sure.
So what are some of the other strategies that you might suggest to help maturing men, maintain that flexibility? We know that, movement is definitely a big part of it. It's that, what's the old saying, Rolling Stone gathers no moss. So movement and just staying active is a huge part. But what are maybe some of the other strategies that you have or that you advise patients on for maintaining flexibility and movement?
Well, I think, as you mentioned earlier, you've started yoga. Yoga is a great exercise. It helps with flexibility, helps with some strength. For people who cannot do that, there is Tai Chi, there's swimming. The gold standard today is adults getting out and walking 30 minutes 5 times a week. Drinking adequate water every day. The gold standard with that is half of your body weight. That's how many ounces of water you should drink a day. So if you're 200 pounds, you should be drinking 100 ounces of water a day. But the key thing is moving, and we find that most injuries occur from doing too much too soon after doing too little for too long. And so people can just kind of get that into their heads that they have to be careful and be slow and be diligent as they take on these different activities. And I think this COVID pandemic has really helped our society, because people are realizing how important it is to stay healthy, keep our immune system strong, and hopefully helps us to avoid contracting the virus.
No, absolutely. I can tell you the greenways and the pathways around where I am, even in the spring, as soon as people were talking about fresh air, exercise, sunlight, especially, those pathways and trails were absolutely packed with people being outside, and which is absolutely great. I think it's important in this age of video conferencing and IMs and emails that people have to get out and exercise, and then also just see and be around other people. I mean, that's part of the health plan as well.
Absolutely. And, for the people that are working from home, it's important that they have good ergonomics, have a good chair, that they are sitting at a proper desk, that they do get up at least once an hour and move around. Those are things that we see, especially with people in the IT sector. They get involved in a project, and the next thing they know, they've been sitting there 3 or 4 hours, and they go to get up and they wonder why they're stiff and achy. So that's a real key thing too.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's in that regards with chairs, it's a little bit like beds. You're spending so much time there, and that has such a big impact on the body. Is if you're going to splurge in certain places, the places where that's going to affect your health and how you feel are the places to put a little bit of extra money into. So going for a little bit better quality chair or quality bed, even it pays off in less aches and pains and issues with your muscles.
Agree. And when you are looking at buying a good bed, I tell patients the one thing to try to avoid is buying a pillow top mattress. They feel great for the first 12 or 18 months, but after that, those pillow tops begin to break down, and then patients begin to start waking up with achy backs, necks, shoulders. And the other thing they need to do is make sure that they either rotate their mattress or rotate it and flip them if the mattress can be flipped. So many mattresses today being manufactured, you cannot flip them, but at least rotate them. And we recommend that people do that once a quarter, which will, extend the life of the mattress. It's like rotating the tires on your car. And many times when patients present and they say, I just feel so stiff in the mornings when I wake up, that's the first thing I have them look at. How old is your mattress?
Yeah, because I mean, just rotating, if you think about it, your torso and all that upper body weight is going to put lumps and bumps into that mattress, and just doing a rotation on that is going to be different. A lot of those will start to go away, and you've got the firmness levels and things that haven't been as compromised at the feet level are back up there supporting your back and your torso.
Exactly.
Now, when we've got people that have served in military, served in police force or firefighters, a lot of those are high stress jobs on the body, whether you're in combat or you're a mechanic that's moving big, heavy tires and equipment around. I know we've talked about, cradle to grave as far as chiropractic, but what are some ways and some strategies as grandfathers we can encourage our sons or ourselves if we haven't been in to get those adjustments?
Yeah, I think education is the important thing. Chiropractic, as I said, it's about 125 years old now, and there's still a lot of misinformation out here. People think they understand what chiropractic is, or they've heard from somebody. Unfortunately, bad press travels much further than good press.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I tell patients, if you haven't tried chiropractic, you haven't tried everything. And our teaching in chiropractic school was chiropractic first, drug second, surgery last.
Right.
And for those types of individuals that you described, it's just important that they schedule an appointment to come in, have an evaluation done. Most people wait till they're in pain to come in. And chiropractic is more than just treating, back pain and neck pain. It's about treating the nervous system, keeping the nervous system functioning healthy. And because the nervous system is what controls and coordinates every other function in our bodies. That's why that little 3-month-old girl was able to have a bowel movement after being adjusted, because we stimulated the nerves going, to her digestive system, and it allowed her to have that bowel movement. And I think that's the biggest thing is the misunderstandings about how people can benefit from chiropractic care.
And one of the things we'll do is put links to your website within the show notes, and we'll be sure to allow people an opportunity to reach out to you as well. To get on, I know you've got a newsletter. I read it. Comes out about once a month, I think. And, it has lots of good information on that. So, folks, check out the show notes. We'll have links to the Alpharetta Back and Neck Center's website. And if you're interested, you can reach out to the practice. You can sign up for the newsletter, get involved, and get yourself educated that way.
And I would also encourage, if they're not in this general listening area, Greg,
Mm-hmm.
The Georgia Chiropractic Association is a good resource. The American Chiropractic Association is also another good resource for getting a referral in their particular area.
Okay, and I'll go look those up and make sure that we get the links in the show notes, so anybody listening to this can get over to my page, to the website, and check out the show notes, and then I'll have links for all of those references and referrals in there. Now,
Great.
as we wrap this up, what I'd love to hear is one of your favorite stories about being a grandpa, and with your experience, because I know you've got several grandchildren, and you've got to have some great stories from your experience with being a grandpa.
That's a great question, and I appreciate you asking that. Yeah, I mean, my wife and I we're fortunate. We have 4 great grandkids. They're 9, 7, and 5 girls, and then our number 2 daughter has about a 16-month-old boy now, and we just learned from her that she is expecting another child April 1st, and it will be a girl.
Oh.
We spend a lot of our free time at Lake Lanier. We had a second home for many years up there, and so on the weekends, that's where we spend our time. So our kids are lake rats, and they just love that. And now our daughter with her 3 daughters, they just love coming to visit. And those girls, they love being on the tube. They love learning how to water ski now. I'm an avid fisherman, so I've got the two older girls, the 9 and 7-year-old, putting a worm on their hook or putting a cricket on their hook, and it's just wonderful to have those times with these kids. I love taking the girls out and having breakfast on Sunday mornings when they're in town visiting. In fact, we're going to be heading over to Birmingham, where our daughter lives, next weekend to be there for Halloween. Unfortunately, won't be a lot of activities, but those are the things that really stand out to me. Is I still work. Unfortunately, I'm a grandfather, but I'm still working. I'm not retired yet, and that's kind of a regret, because I would love to spend more time with the kids during these formative years. But unfortunately, some of us are still working. But so the time that I'm with them is quality time, since I can't give them quantity time, and they just light up my life when I'm around them.
Sure. And I can tell you, just from the interviews that I've had, and especially of two of the women that I've interviewed so far, is both of them have strong memories starting about that 7 years old, even younger, of their grandfathers, and doing exactly what you're doing. Taking them out, teaching them how to fish, spending some time with them, taking them to the diner in the mornings. And so these activities are more powerful than I think and myself know with these kids, because someday they're going to be being asked about you, and what you're doing today is going to be what they're going to recall. So really appreciate the time that you've spent with me this evening, and just wanted to say thanks again for joining us and sharing knowledge about men's health and chiropractic, and how that can be just one of the many tools in our toolbox for staying fit and for keeping up with those rugrats. So appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Greg, and I really appreciate your trust and confidence you've placed in me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and share it with a friend. That's the best way you can help us to expand our community, as well as get the news out about how valuable grandpas are in the lives of those kids. If you'd like to leave me a comment or shoot me a potential topic for this podcast, please go to www.cool-grandpa.us. Look for the comments tab, fill it out, hit submit. It's as easy as that. Until next time, remember to stay cool.